With that, we move to the next speaker, Mr. Deepak Bagla, who is the MD and CEO of Invest India. Mr. Deepak, while you bring up your video and unmute your button, I'll read a brief bio of yours to introduce you to the audience. Deepak has a professional career of over 3 decades, starting with the World Bank in Washington. In 1989, he joined Citibank Global Corporate and Investment Banking team and held several responsibilities across Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia. In 2007, he joined private equity to start an India-dedicated fund for core infrastructure. Mr. Bagla is currently the Managing Director and CEO of Invest India, the national investment execution agency for the Government of India Startup Initiative. He was the special invitee to the Government of India's high-level committee on financing infrastructure, member of the Banking and Finance Committee of the Bureau of Indian Standards, and a member of the committee established by the government to recommend corporate governance norms for independent directors. He was elected president of Delhi Management Association in 2008 and 2009. Mr. Bagla has a bachelor's degree with honors in economics from St. Stephen's College, New Delhi, and a dual master's degree in international diplomacy and international trade and finance from the School of Foreign Service, Georgetown University, Washington. Mr. Deepak, over to you.
Thank you, Naveen. Thank you very much. And thank you for organizing this. I must commend ISA. You always do a great event and getting everyone together. It's been such a packed morning. And I was always on my computer hearing some amazing speakers. And we just had the secretary before us who's given you such an expansive view and a very comprehensive view of what is happening, especially in the electronic space and the MeitY part of it, which is, I think, one of the most vibrant sectors which we are seeing. What I thought I'll just do with everyone, and I know it's a post-lunch session, and let's do it about 10 to 15 minutes, is just to share with you as to what is happening currently as a global perspective for investment. And why I'm saying that is because, as you mentioned, Naveen, Invest India is the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency. It's the first point of contact for any foreign investor when they come into India. And the team does everything for them, from showing them the opportunity to getting them all execution and to get it all into commercial production, and also to handhold the industry, which is not just the foreign industry, but even the domestic industry per se. So that's a big part of it. And as you mentioned, the second part of the vertical being that where we are the execution arm for Startup India, and also the execution arm for Agni, the Accelerated Growth of New India Innovation, which is under the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Prime Minister, which is where we are picking up innovations and taking them on a fast track to commercialization. So with that quick background as to where I'm coming from and the team which I represent, let me just share with you what is happening today. We are on day 153 of the most unprecedented lockdown in human history. And the reason why I start with this is because just prior coming into these 153 days, what I believe we were at was one of the most critical inflection points of modern Indian history. And what I say that is, I look at that inflection point, which was the bottom end of that hockey stick, where we're just rounding that corner, willing to take off. And let me give you a few statistics to give you some perspective of where we are. We closed 31st March 2020 with an FDI of $74 billion. It's the highest ever FDI we've got in our history. Let me put it in perspective. Total FDI we've got, let's say from 2000 to 2020, is about a little over $700 billion. 50% of that has come only in the past 60 months. But let me give you a more interesting part of that $74 billion. We got that $74 billion. My share in FDI went up 18% since last year. And this happened at a time when global FDI was going down by 7%. Let me tell you some more interesting things of the 74 billion. Close to 93% of the 74 billion came in the open automatic route, which meant that it did not require any specific government approvals, which goes to show that how we are one of the most open economies on the planet, with the private sector having the ability to participate each and every sector of my economy. And another very interesting element of the 74 billion is close to 50%, a little over 45%, of this is greenfield investment. The global investor today is comfortable in taking a long term call on India. Now, why was this happening? Let us see the things where we left off before we started with this virus. And I'm talking of early March. The reason why we were saying this huge movement happening in India becoming a focal point for global investors was basically one, the fastest, largest, youngest. If I just put it into those three buckets, fastest, we were the fastest growing large economy. We were one of the largest consumer bases. I mean, with about 1.3 billion people, 1.5 billion customers by 2025. I think no other single geography in the world within the same national boundary will be able to have 1.5 billion customers plus, at least for the next 100 years. So you're the largest consumer market. You're the youngest. We are an average age of 29. You will remain the youngest market or the youngest economy, large economy in the planet, all the way up to 2080. These are very compelling imperatives for any investor when they were looking at us. Added to that, see the other elements which were happening. You know, in the past 50 months, we opened over 1,100 R&D centers of global multinationals in India. You were the number one destination for global multinationals opening their R&D centers outside of their home country. All this in the past 50 months. Again, because you have a very well skilled, educated human resource, which is apparently rated now amongst the best in the world and acknowledged for it. So, what I was saying is that what has now happened in the past 153 days? You already had those strong pillars where the world was looking at you to be the next engine of growth, and everybody depending on you to do that. What has happened in these past 153 days is that it has amplified and catalyzed underlying trends, not just in India, but in the global economy. The first one of those, the first one of those being reshoring or onshoring of supply chains. You remember de risking was a core business concept which we all used to learn the moment we started business or started our business school or went to our bachelor's. But over the past 2 decades, companies, etc., and global corporates had let that be, and you saw them sort of trying to get concentrated into certain geographic areas because of apparent cost benefits. And with this virus, that entire exposure process came to the fore. And today, every company in the world is looking to reshore their entire supply chain closer to where the market is. That is one big change factor which has happened and which we are seeing already. Let me tell you what is happening with me as a team. Currently, my team is hand holding. We have a dedicated relationship manager for each of the companies we handhold. We have over 570 companies we are hand holding with a total investment indicated amount of over $165 billion. This is what I'm doing currently. But what I've noticed, and especially in the past 100, days, a huge growth increase in the number of business interests which are coming in, where they're looking how they can reposition onshore their existing supply chains. And you saw a part of that. You saw when on 31st July, you had to close out on the scheme which was applicable, especially on the electronics and the IT side. And you had virtually every global major and a large number of Indian global majors applying to that. It is not just that industry. I must say that it is one of the top industries we have, but there are a number of other industries where that is opening up. Look at the other thing which you did during the course of this virus. You were the one which was supplying those tablets to those 123 countries which required it. So pharmaceutical, and you're having a number of other policies which are coming up. So we have positioned ourselves, we've shown the strengths, and now the world is looking that this is where they can look at it and they can confidently look at their supply chain being positioned here. That is a big movement. In fact, where I'm concerned, I will be doing a 2x or a 3x of my own team during the course of the next 180 days because of the new amount of queries and indicated interests which we are working with. That is to show you how that is happening. The second part is happening, supply chains are getting shorter. Global supply chains are not going to be that spread out as long. Again, closer to where the market is. We already spoke. You remain the primary market of the world and you're growing stronger into it. In fact, my statistics, which the team had just shared with me, by 2030, 83% of Indian households will be in the middle income, the high middle income, or the high income group. 83%. Today, we are about 53% of our households. You see that huge number getting added onto that entire customer base. By the way, just to leave you with a number, there's a BCG study which says that an Indian born in 2000 spends about $247,000 in his or her lifetime. Multiply that 247,000 by 1.5 billion, you will get the power of this economy. And that is a growing power of this economy and one of the fastest growing powers of this economy. Now, let me tell you the other interesting thing what happened in this. The strengths of my innovation, and Secretary mentioned about our innovation and startups before that. The entire strength of my MSMEs, my innovation, and my startup was amplified during this period of this COVID. I'll give you an example. 30th March, I did not have a single PPE in India. I know we were scurrying around across the globe trying to import PPEs, trying to get ventilators for what we required. On the 15th of July, I had over 800,000 PPEs run rate a day. Not just enough for my own country, which includes ventilators, but also to export to other countries. In fact, we are looking to export to multiple countries, which include the USA, which include countries like UK, which shows that my products are global class and quality. And who made it happen? This was my innovation, my MSMEs, and my startups. Their ability, their nimbleness of business models, their ability to pivot their business models and change them fast, and the best utilization of resources. That frugal innovation strength is now what is going to propel the growth of New India the moment we walk out of this COVID. Now comes my third point. How fast can we get out of it? Before we went into it, you were the fastest growing large economy. How fast you get out of it, is it 12 months, is it 24 months or 30 months, and take back that position is what we're talking about. Let me share with you some statistics. And I believe that because of our government's clear, unambiguous stated objective of saving lives and going in for an early lockdown, where we are today, and let me give you numbers. Of the 729 districts of India today, only in 11 of those districts do I have over 5,000 cases each. In fact, it's only in 26, in 88 of those districts that I have over 1,000 cases. 88 out of 729. In fact, in 449 districts, which now came down to 192, so in about close to 200 districts out of that 729, I have less than 50 cases each. In fact, in 23 districts, I have zero case. We've been able to contain this. We never know the way this virus changes on a daily basis, but so far the containment has been there. And what are the results of this containment? In fact, if you look at it, over 80% of the cases are confined to 5 of my 28 states or 6 of my 28 states. So what is it? Let me give you statistics again, which I got of June and coming into July. MSME was the largest hit in this entire COVID instance which we are going through. Let me give you June figures. The July figures will just be coming in and we're just getting them vetted. In June, my MSME collections, and remember this was a period when there's a moratorium announced, was 65%. 65% collections, even in a moratorium, even in a completely hit economy from my MSMEs. And it doesn't end there. My microfinance collection started at 60% the month of June, ended at 80%. My FMCG's demand is back to pre-COVID levels. My two-wheeler demand, my small tractor demand, back to pre-COVID levels. My wheat harvesting, in fact, my procurement up of Rabi was up 11%, and my Kharif sowing is up by 13%. There are very strong green shoots which are appearing in the system. My belief that we will be anywhere between a V and a U to get out of this as soon as possible. And the moment you get out of this, you remain on track of being one of the largest attractors of foreign investment. Now comes the third. I gave you the three pillars: the largest, the fastest, and the youngest. Now I'll tell you how the government has strengthened the fourth pillar during these 153 days. That fourth pillar, where a lot of movement had been happening during the past 50 days, and the Honorable Prime Minister has been focusing on that entire ease of doing business. Please remember that move from the 140s to the 70s and the 60s, what we talk of our ranking in the ease of doing business. You know how many policy and interventions the state government and the central government together had to make that happen? Over 11,000. We were such a complex system. And this is what happened when this government came in. Their stated objective was to make it simple and easy for the investor and for each one of us, as the Prime Minister says, ease of living. And what has happened? You've had unprecedented reforms being announced both by state governments and our central government during the past 153 days. You've had the state governments coming up with labor reforms, which were unheard of. You had the state governments coming up with the ease of doing business and that entire packages to help fiscal packages and incentive packages to help industry. We just heard the secretary who gave us an entire set of details of that package. And by the way, before we started that, we've already done for all new investment one of the most attractive tax rates in the world at 15%. All these packages had come out to be very strong and have been very well accepted by the investor. The other interesting thing which has happened is that when we are seeing supply chains move, that means you'll have a lot of MSMEs move. For that, what is happening? The government is now, we have over 3,000 clusters, business clusters. They're upgrading those clusters. They're creating plug and play models out of it. Both the central government and the state government have announced single windows, which is to fast track all approvals which are required. In the next few weeks, you will have Invest India only a very strong level of trust with the global investor. And please remember, trust is one of the most critical elements of the investment cycle. And then you have a company like ours, Invest India, which is the red carpet to handhold you right through. What am I coming back to? I'm coming back to when I started off to say that what COVID has done has amplified some of the existing underlying trends which were there. One of those biggest ones, I've given you the four pillars which have been strengthened, and the leapfrog of India, which is going to happen as we turn around that bottom end of the hockey stick and move up on the vertical chart, is going to be led by that entire digitization movement which was created by this government. That has made India one. For the first time in human economic history, a brand new company could get 100 million new clients in 180 days at the cost of one-fifth of acquiring a customer as compared to a global average. A brand new global company comes into India and has the ability to get 36 million new customers in 30 months, again, at a cost less than half of acquiring a customer as per global average cost. Not only India is now one of the largest markets, not only is India, which is a market which is one of the fastest growing, not only is India one of the youngest markets with a tremendous workforce and human resource to help in that growth, nor is it one which is also helping you to get the ease of your doing business, but one where it is now easiest to expand your business and access that customer across the country. And we were talking about a little one before I close. I must share with you one of the biggest strengths of India. Startup India was launched on January 2016 by the Honorable Prime Minister. Let me tell you where we are today on Startup India. We are number 3 in the world in number of unicorns. We are number 2 in the world in number of startups. As per market estimates, I'm number 2. As far as if you go to Startup India, because they look at only the ones which are registered, so far 30 or 1,000 have registered. And we are number 1 in the world with new startups adding every day. I'm more than 8 ahead of Israel. But you know what is most interesting where that is concerned? The most interesting thing is that if you look at the growth of new startups and new innovation, it is now coming bottom up. Two-thirds of the queries which we get onto startups is coming from tier 2 and tier 3 cities of India. In fact, out of those 729 districts today, 563 districts have a registered startup in India. The growth of this new India is not just going to be led by the MSMEs and the startups and innovation, but it is going to be led bottom up. The growth of new India is moved beyond the big towns and cities. And that is where the strength of this new India is coming from. You know which are the new hubs of startups coming? Let me give you a few little idea on that. Raipur, Lucknow, Khorda, Ernakulam, Chota Udaipur in Gujarat, Datia in Madhya Pradesh, Firozpur in Punjab, Hingoli in Maharashtra, Mahe in Ponde, Saharsa in Bihar, Sirohi in Rajasthan. These are the places where the strength of India is coming. These are the places where you're seeing my new startup community coming. And let me end with you. Just a few days ago, I was on one of these webinars sharing a stage with a young 18-year-old boy from Saharsa, a small place in Bihar. His name is Rohit Kashyap. And you know what Rohit has done? Rohit has started a startup. It's called Mindtree School. And what it does, it helps startups in his area connect to the world. That, my friend, is the new India. And that is what is we are going to see, which is going to create an economy, which is going to be that $10 trillion economy in 2030 and that $5 trillion economy in 2025-26. It is the Rohit Kashyaps of India, which are going to be the strength and the growth of new India. Thank you.
Wow, Deepak, that was amazing details of statistics, that power of us and we that you showed to us, and then finishing the story of Rohit. That was really motivating to hear that. Uh, Quickly, a question for you, Deepak. I think there are a lot of questions coming in, but maybe I'll read in one of that and try to link that. Obviously, the moment you start talking about invest and a lot of semiconductor people have the question is that the same. That right? Will Invest India link some of the Indian startups to foreign investors, specifically in semiconductor segment, and and then focus on a high value industry rather than just the low cost ones.
Absolutely, Naveen. We are already doing it. We created these special ventilators for COVID during this period. Who did it? My startups, who we paired them up with larger companies to get the scale going. You know, there's a special program which the Prime Minister had initiated. I told you about that Agni, AGNII, Accelerated Growth of New India Innovation. I would urge everyone who's with us today, please go onto our website, investindia.gov.in. You will get all these, by the way, just to give you, Invest India is a startup of the government. I was effectively 2015, but 2016-17 is when the team really took off. And just to tell you, even what a startup within the government context like ours, we are today rated by UNCTAD as the world's #1 investment promotion agency at a budget which is 1/10 of that of my competitors globally. This is the new India, Naveen, and you will have all these details. And that is what Agni is doing. We are taking all my innovations because the strength of India is in the innovations. In fact, I see India as being the solution provider to the entire globe's challenges. And we are working on that platform to create that. So when you get onto my website, you will see the Startup India website, you will see the Agni website, you will see the new launch which we just did yesterday with the principal scientific advisor of the Prime Minister on Waste to Wealth initiative. Come on, be a part with us. We are with you. We are there to make it happen. Thank you, Naveen.
Thank you so much. I am with you for sure,
Thanks,
and
Naveen.
so are many of us. So that was very encouraging. We have a packed plan. I think the way you spoke, there is tons of questions that's coming in. But for the interest of time, we will move forward and maybe continue to discuss this in some of the other forums as we move forward. On behalf of the ISA team, Deepak, please accept our thank you. Thank you for taking time out and sharing your thoughts with us.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you. And all those questions